Okay, Shannon, you there?
Nope, I ran away and joined the circus.
Oh, I thought you joined the Navy. Oh,
Nah,
wait,
been
what
there, done
happened
that.
was?
Been there, done that. Now I just stick with the circus.
Okay, all right. So, where are we at?
Well, I am currently sitting in Big Lake, Alaska. You are currently sitting in Meadow Lakes area, Alaska.
No,
Up
no,
ready
no.
for your update for the week.
Okay, all right. Um, we're in pretty good shape, folks, in spite of everything. We do have some minor crises of various sorts where we have members of our team who are in special need. So I will recommend that fact to all of you, and in terms of sending good energy and prayers and whatever shekels you can send. We are engaged in a very broad spectrum large number of projects and efforts all across the spectrum of different concerns, everything from the banking to the diplomacy to the reorganization of government functions to, dealing with the distractions and um, what could you even call it? The missteps of the government apparatus and various individual parties that have been influenced in one way or another by blocks of power players and higher authorities or principal authorities in the commercial world. And so there's a lot of cleanup to do on top of all of the actual necessary work as a result of missteps and mistakes that people made in the most recent past. Economically, we're in very good shape as a country. I know it may not seem like that right now, but America was and is the richest country on earth. This is a great blessing, but it's also a great call to us in many respects to be responsible stewards of the earth and to remember all the other countries and nations that are in development to begin the process of really maximizing their own resources and learning their own path forward. And so we have some extra burden to bear simply because we're the ones that can bear it. And that's okay. That's going to be all right. We are grateful for all our blessings, and we're grateful for the wonderful resources that are ours. And we're especially grateful for all our countrymen and women who are some of the most enlightened and productive and kind people on earth. Americans, by and large, are really wonderful. And one of the things that we have in common with all the rest of the world that no other country has to the same extent is that we come from the entire world. We are truly the melting pot of melting pots. The people who count themselves as Americans have come here from every possible prior destination. So we are them and they are us, and we are together one magnificent, beautiful, and very diverse culture. So pat yourself on the back be proud and happy and kind of square yourselves up, because there are a lot of things that we still need to do. There's a lot of work to be done. And not the least of that work will be to continue the process of educating ourselves and developing ourselves and becoming more knowledgeable about ourselves, both as a country and as individuals. So keep that little key in the back of your mind that self-governance requires governing the self. We tend to think that it's something external to us. We think of it in terms of institutions and organizational bodies like the Congress and things like that. But no, self-government really begins with you as an individual, developing discernment, becoming sensitive to what's true and what's practical, and also at the same time developing your sense of conscience. What's right for me, what's right for the country. What is the higher love in this situation? The greater thing that we serve is something quite beyond and beyond, above and beyond ourselves. And it has to do with our role as a steward or trustee of the present moment, this precious time that we call now. And what we do now not only affects the future and what the options are in the future, but it also, to an extent, rewrites the past. Now, this is a concept that we don't encounter and probably never thought about, but this little present moment called now is what's also called the alpha and omega. Now is actually the only time that we have which exists. The past is already gone. The future isn't here. There is only now and an eternal progression of nows in which the alpha, all that is in the past, and the omega, all that's in the future, come together in this one little moment that we call now. And we are the stewards now. Those of us who are alive and present and conscious and able in this moment have a responsibility both to the future and, in a way, to the past. Now, the future we comprehend easily. We know that what we do today is going to impact tomorrow. That's obvious. That is a linear timeline in our minds, at least, which makes sense to us. Just intuitively, we understand that. The opposite, that what we do now impacts the past, is a concept that is more difficult and less intuitive for us to grasp, but it's nonetheless true. When we take steps now to produce remedies and comforts and to make amends for things that happened in the past, we heal the past. The facts are the facts of what happened. But how those facts are felt, how they are healed or left to fester or bleed, is up to us. Because we have the power in the present moment to heal and to comfort and to change the impacts of the past. And that's something that we all have to take into our thought pattern and into our consideration, is that if we've harmed someone, what can we do to change that? How can we make this a better world? How can we take that ugly thing, that lie, that cruelty, that injustice? What can we do that will change that outcome? So a part of this is both in our personal lives and in our political lives as a nation, as a country, is to think about those things where we made a mistake, or we were misled, or we were just blinded by some passion or fear and wound up doing something that was disgraceful or mean or unjust or just plain stupid, and it wound up hurting people, wound up hurting our world, hurting our environment, whatever it is. Now, how or what makes a difference? Now, I realized myself some years ago that there are some debts that you can't repay. You literally, there's no way for you to specifically repay a kindness or a critical insight or a comfort or something that you received in the past that you never repaid. You never said thank you for. Quite possibly because you didn't realize that it was so important at the time. People die, people drift away, various kinds of closures happen. And so there you are. You realize that you owe someone a great debt, and there's no way to repay that. Can you still rewrite that past? And the question becomes how? How can you stick your oar in the water and do something that can change or that can add to a timeline that seems to be severed? Well, the answer is that timelines are never severed. You can reconnect to any past timeline. And one of the more healing things that you can do for yourself in those instances, for example, someone really had a bigger effect on your life that benefited you going forward than you realized at the time. Say that you realize in retrospect that a school teacher in high school really set you on the right path, or really gave you a piece of information or an insight that changed your life for the better. And now they've passed on, and you can't tell them thank you. You can't say, wow, that changed my whole framework, my whole way of looking at things. Go back and tell them that anyway. Have that conversation in your mind. Tell them, thank you. You did something really wonderful for me. It matters. It changes the energy of that timeline. And it will change your life too. So just those little things. Or if you did something really awful and it had terrible consequences for you and for others, what can you do? Well, first and foremost, you can admit to yourself, you can confess, yeah, this was really bad. And, I did it and I know why I did it, or I don't know why I did it, but I realized that this had a terrible effect and it really hurt people. And what can I do about it now? Well, number one, you can confess that and realize it and take it in and accept it and say, okay, well, my bad. And then you can pick yourself up, maybe off the floor, but you can pick yourself up. And you can, number one, determine that you're never going to do anything like that again. You're not going to make the same mistakes twice. Number two, you can see if there's something you can do specifically for those you hurt in a practical sense. And if the answer is no, you can do something in the community to make amends. It may or may not immediately offer itself to you what you could do in the community, but just leave that open and it will appear. It will make itself known in terms of needs that people in the community have, that organizations have, and you'll see your chance to make that difference. So in all these ways, you can rewrite the past. You can reorient your position with respect to the past. And as you do that, the past actually changes. It rewrites itself. It heals. Now, that's a creepy kind of oddball thing to imagine, and it is a little bit strange when you encounter this and you encounter this rewriting effect. But that doesn't mean that we should not pursue it and exercise it and use it to make the difference, to make the past better, using your strength and your position now. All right, so it's not just making good decisions now to make sure that we have a better future. It's also a matter of making good decisions now so that the past is healed and the good people in our lives are honored and our own mistakes and our own missteps are, to the extent that we can, corrected, healed, closed. All right, so in all of those ways, we're actually serving to make ourselves better and more stable and more grounded in the present. And that then gives us a better basis for making decisions related to our community and to our family and our entire country and ultimately our world. So all of that is sort of internal work. Some people call it shadow work, in that it requires introspection and it requires us to be honest and to have sort of a self-interview with our own lives. But that's all part and parcel of the rest, restore, and receive time that we have here in front of us for a little while longer anyway, to do this kind of introspection and to increase our awareness and to work on our ability to discern where we have areas that need attention. And so I'm just kind of sharing that with you tonight to encourage you all to do what you can to do that housekeeping. Think about those things in the past that need healing or that need a thank you. And think about those things in the future that you want to lay the groundwork for today. And part of what we did this past week was make a very clear communication to the government, or I should say the government subcontractors, and those institutions and diplomatic forums that we engage with, that we don't want half measures in terms of cleaning up the mess. We don't want to just cobble together something and build on the ruins of our foundations and create some other thing that is going to be flawed by the same problems that brought us to today, that is, building on fraud. That's what the military did after the Civil War. They didn't fully disclose the circumstance. They did not act to restore the civilian government. They didn't even inform the civilian government. And they basically used coercive power to usurp against their employers. And the banks helped them to do this by making the employer's credit available to them. And so, we have a similar situation here where, once again, the military is in control, and the military is being asked to not only fully inform their employers, but to stand down in a sense and allow the civilian government to take back its rightful authority, which the military knows is supposed to reside with the civilian authority, not the military authority. And part of the reason, by the way, that this is the way it is that the military has more than enough to do as the military. And their functions as a military are not that sympathetic or compatible with the mission of the civilian government. So there are practical reasons why the civilian government is supposed to control the military, not the flip side, opposite way around. So at the very least, we step back and we explain that we do not want to build a new world on fraudulent assumptions and underpinnings. And we brought up a couple of the things that are really most irritating at this point, but then we developed the no more list. And for those who have already seen the no more list, you know that it's a rather weighty and large list of things that we want to see immediately corrected, or as quickly as possible. I mean, some of these things are huge and will take, however long it takes, maybe a decade, maybe 2 decades to correct. But once we identify those things that need to be corrected, we at least have a fighting chance. Once the problem is identified, we've got the first step in finding solutions. And so we identified a very substantial and long roster of the worst things that need to be corrected. And we presented that this week. I'm sure we missed some things that are equally compelling, but we took a good swing at it and got a large chunk of those issues that need correction brought forward. Now, we're not going to stop going forward. I mean, every day is a new day. So even with some of these worst offending situations and circumstances and institutions, we're going to have to limp our way forward. And so be patient. Understand that it took over 160 years for this to actually be brought forward for correction. And it's not all just instantaneously going to disappear overnight. Some of it can. Other aspects of it will take a long time to be completely eradicated or completely overturned and changed. So I would suggest that people search their hearts and minds during this period of rest, restore, and recover, and look at the issues and the irritations that concern you most. Is it the theft of property? Is it surveillance? Is it being constantly scrutinized by artificial intelligence? Is it the proliferation of biological warfare? I mean, what is it that really concerns you individually? What really concerns your community? Okay. And I would suggest that whatever it is that calls to you as the real focus of your concern, maybe the very reason that you joined this movement in the first place, that's where you should put your attention and energy when it comes to self-governing your government. Make up your mind that, hey, if the abuses of the Child Protective Service is a real focus for you, well, there's probably a reason that calls to you. That's a reason. That's something that is your mission. Okay, so start there. And I can already tell you that what happens is that you start out with one thing and you pull that forward to a point of resolution where you can let go of it, and almost immediately something else will replace it. So there are so many things that need correction, and there are so many valid, vital concerns that my experience anyway is that as soon as you get resolution on one aspect, there'll be something more for you to do. And I really encourage all of you to take that kind of proactive and accepting and happy stance with regard to those things that matter to you, and act upon them. Become that activist, right? As in proactive. So many of us have been programmed to be bumps on the log, to just go along to get along, to keep a low profile and kind of hide who you are and hide what you feel, and just be this kind of passive little infantile recipient of whatever big brother or whatever agency or group was going to deliver to you or foist upon you, right? But this situation, this time in history, it requires us to be proactive. Not just active, but actually proactive. Looking at what we need to do in order to secure remedy for past injustice, what we have to do to stop present injustices, and what we have to do now to protect ourselves from some of the ugly things that were planned for humanity. So we have to become engaged, and we have to be acting in a forward active stance. We're not just going to sit here and wait for them to to start some horrible new program. The moment that we hear about it, we're going to jump on it like an entire, an entire dog pile. We're going to, put an end to things before they can begin to be problems. And anything that is already in motion, we're going to address it right here, right now. We're not going to sit around and endure it and put up with it and then see how much worse it can get before we address it as an evil. Those things that are evil, and they're going to remain evil until they are eradicated or converted into something good. So we're being called to recognize that proactive opportunity, that window where we can get in front of the wildfire and in front of whatever evil or future plan that is not desirable. We can get in there ahead of it or in tandem with it, and we can change it on the ground running. So those are the sorts of actions that we're going to be undertaking as it goes forward. Now, quite a few of you have discovered that you're earth angels. Not a huge number, but yes, quite a few have found out, hey, looks like I might be an earth angel. I might be carrying angelic energy in my little body. I might have a history as an angel going back billions of years, and it might be right here, present in me. And guess what? I'm not just supposed to be sitting here like a bump on a log. I'm supposed to be actively pursuing a mission. A mission to help the earth and help my fellow man here on the earth. What is it? What is it I'm supposed to be doing? Well, there are 3 basic mission groups. There are the servants, who are largely teachers and healers, but there are some other, there are artisans, there are artists. They are here to teach and heal and serve mankind. Okay, so you've got that group. You have the messengers. They're here to communicate, to bring concepts forward into consciousness and help people to recognize issues that are important, find solutions, give counsel, and to communicate things that are important as we all move forward. And last but not least, there are the warriors. And the warriors among the angels bear the greatest responsibility because they have to tread the line between good and evil, right and wrong, justice and injustice, every moment that they're active and that they're alive in this world. So the warriors tend to be the real heavy hitters. And they are, you will find that they tend to be people who are very thoughtful, who are very justice-minded. They really soul search. They really care about justice. They really care about justice in a greater sense than law. They care about justice in terms of love. And one of the things that I sent out this week was just a reminder that the law is present to condemn you. Okay? The law is there to prove to you that you're guilty and worthless and can't do anything. Okay? Even the 10 Commandments are there to, be in front of you and to humble you, because you can't really go through a lifetime and fulfill even 10 commandments. Okay, so the law is there to condemn you, always. The law is a condemnatory tool. It is a rod that is brought down on you and which makes you guilty, and that sets up the conditions for which you can experience guilt, okay? And by which you can be condemned to whatever degree your infraction implies. So the law is there to condemn. It's always there to condemn. It's always meant to be a rod, a goad, an embarrassment, a proof that you are not able, that you are incompetent, that you are stupid, that you are sinful, that you are willful, that you are mean-spirited, that you're cruel, that you're reckless, all these different things. So the law is a negative. The law is a means of control and condemnation. Now, the opposite of the law is love. And love affirms that you are good, that you're worthwhile, that you are worth saving, that you always have potential, that you are utterly commendable in what you desire in your heart, that your intention is good, that your will is to have peace. Love affirms. And so you have the law that condemns, and you have the love that affirms. And we have a choice between those two systems of which one do we choose. We can discipline ourselves to the law of love, or we can be judged under the other kind of law. And it's up to us. Choose. Which way do you want to live your life? Under which law do you prefer to exist? You do have a choice. Now, I was talking with someone this past week about the whole concept of surrender. And we were talking specifically in the context of a friend of his is a very good, solid, devout, 100% believer Christian. And he was talking about surrendering to Christ. Well, to Yeshua, okay? And this caused me to do some ruminating. And there are a lot of ways of looking at the life and life lack and progression and teaching and everything related to Yeshua, or Yahashua, is that really, if you're looking at that as a symbolic journey and as the crucifixion as a symbol, what you're actually looking at is the personification of love and how love is crucified in this world, how it is mistreated, how love is misjudged, how love is slandered, how false accusations are brought against it, how greed and envy and fear pile up and condemn it. That is what you're looking at in the crucifixion, the personification of love, crucified by all of the sins, errors, fears, angers of this world. But then the law of love kicks in and says, but I will resurrect from the dead. I will give eternal life. I will bring eternal comfort. I will bring eternal glory to what the world despised. Think about that. think about the entire story of the lifetime's passionate death and resurrection in terms of what it means at a symbolic level. And think about what I've told you in terms of the law versus love. And the worlds that you can build using one or the other. Do we live under law or do we live under love? This is what's being presented to you. A choice. So just take that into your brain bank of different ideas and concepts and start thinking about that question, because it is central to what kind of future we have and what kinds of choices we make as we emerge from this very dark, murky, duplicitous, confused, deluded, illusory world that we've been living in throughout the past age of Pisces. Now, as we are emerging into the comparatively blinding light of the new age of Aquarius, things are shifting and shifting fast. And these are, you have to understand it in terms of energies that are hitting us from the entire solar system, from the galaxy, from the universe beyond. These are changes in energy. You know, people talk about you walk into the room and the energy changes. We've all experienced this. We all know it's true. You know, you can walk into situations and everybody's upset and angry and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden a new piece of information arises and, oh, wow, now everything's all right, right? The energy changes, the assumptions, the emotions, the thought forms and feelings that people are projecting outward suddenly collapse inward and, oh, well, we're all right now, right? Or you're in a situation and everybody's kind of, you know, the crowd is mumbling and there's all this talk going on, and then all of a sudden somebody walks in and they're the focus and the room falls silent. Right? We've all been there. Well, the universe is the same way. Everything that we experience as people is being played out in the macrocosm and in the microcosm. We're kind of in the middle. But the universe is the same way. There are times when the energy shifts. It changes. And other aspects of us and other aspects of our lives become highlighted as a result of that change in the overall energy that we're existing in. And it's designed so that it's a progression that our development follows. Just, you know, for example, when you are a toddler, your development is all focused on your mobility and the development of language skills and, you know, your big fight with Mr. Gravity and learning to walk and learning to talk and learning to, you know, make use of these innate abilities that came with your human body package, right? And then, you know, a few years later, well, you're in high school and suddenly it's the refinement of all of those basic abilities. And now you're using your ability to walk and to move in new ways. You're learning to play football. You're learning to coordinate motions with other people as a team. You know, you are developing your musculature and your strength and your coordination in ways that are adult. And, it's a whole different world, right? Well, at each one of these stations in life, you're developing different aspects of yourself. And it's the same way with the cosmos. Those of you who have studied fractal math know that it's like a chambered nautilus. From the very, very small little central chamber at the center of the shell, and then you go out and out and out and out, and each chamber is of the same shape. It's just bigger. It's built on the same dimensions. I guess I startled some people by observing that life begins with a flash of light. When a sperm penetrates the wall of the egg and fertilizes it, there's a little flash of light. And you can actually see this. You can measure it. You can observe it. There's a flash of light. And it doesn't matter if it's a chicken egg or a human embryo or where life begins, there's a flash of light. And the same thing happened when this universe was born. We call it the Big Bang. And suddenly, there it is. Well, this same sort of what would you say? Sympathy, synchronicity, similarity. It runs all the way across. Just as a baby has a whole set of potentials, the universe has a whole set of potentials. And as we become more aware of those potentials, and we become more aware of the progress that we make and the way that we make progress within the cosmos, then it makes sense that just as you have a period of time when you're building a specific ability as a toddler, and then you have an expansion of those abilities when you're a teenager, it's the same way with the cosmic clock, if you will. We are going through these different energies and these different ages that are specifically set up that way so that humanity as a whole makes progress in these areas, right? And we're entering a time period here, a space where there will be a radical change from the old patterns and the old energies that were designed to develop one kind of awareness and set of skills into another era where we will be developing a separate and different set of skills and abilities. Now, for those of you who have read the New Testament many times, know that at a very specific moment, Jesus very deliberately said that his kingdom was not of this age. That's literal. His kingdom does not belong to the age of Pisces, which is an age of illusion and secrecy and veils of deceit, okay? His kingdom belongs to a different age, the age of Aquarius, which is dawning, which is now here. Those of you who remember the old song, The Dawning of the Age of Aquarius, peace and love abounding. This is the age, this is the time. This is the kingdom come. So just realize that, see the logic of it and accept that things are maybe larger, bigger, stronger, stranger than you ever imagined, and yet here we are. And it's up to us. Because we're here when? Now, in this critical alpha omega moment where the past and the future collide, right here, us. It's an amazing opportunity to do good. It's an amazing opportunity to do evil. And we all have to make a choice. Do we want abundance? Do we want peace? Do we want to experience love in our lives? You know? Or do we want to go on with this money-grubbing, warmongering insanity? We have free will. We can continue on with the programming and the assumptions and the behaviors and the deceit and the practices and the evils of the prior age. Or we can walk out the opposite door and say, nope, bye, see ya, we're going to do something different. This is the new age. And this is when we're set free from the delusions, illusions, and ugliness that we've known. We've learned. We're making a different choice. We're governing ourselves as individuals and our world in a different way, according to a different law, a different kind of law. Okay? And just today I published an exercise, which some of you are going to kind of scratch your heads and go, you know, this sounds like something that a couple or a couple of good friends maybe, or a mom and a child, or, you know, it requires a kind of intimate relationship with someone to do this. Even though it's perfectly innocent and good, it requires a certain degree of intimacy to be able to carry through with this exercise. In the article, The Open Gate. But I just wanted to add to that it doesn't have to be done if you don't have someone who is an intimate friend, if you don't have a lover, if you don't have a spouse that can do this with you. You can imagine it as if it were happening, and the same effects will come to you. Just as if someone actually did this with you as an exercise, if you had a partner. You don't have to have a partner to do this exercise. It's better, obviously, if you can actually have the physical input along with the mental. But the emotional payload and the physical response is the same, to the extent that you can precisely imagine it. So if you don't have someone who can do this with you, you can use your own imagination to reap the benefit of the exercise simply by quieting your mind and imagining it happening. All right? So, and it's the same with any exercise like that I give you going forward. Now, this one is a very simple exercise, and the object of it is to relax your body, increase the oxygen content in your blood, and reconnect you to the rest of creation, which is no small thing. This is something that is exceedingly beneficial to you, biologically, emotionally, and mentally. Okay, so if you've got health problems, this is a biggie. If you have a disease, if you're fighting cancer, if you have diabetes, if you have osteoarthritis, if you are suffering from any kind of illness, any kind of chronic illness, this is a It's an interesting cure-all in that it stimulates three critical systems of the body and does so in a very innocent, innocuous way. Now, I mean, you could conceivably make it into, an entrance into passion. You could. It's all in what your intent is and how you do it. But anyway, you start out by kissing. Right. Remember I said that there were various aspects of touch that were more important and some were more, they had a greater range of applicability. Look back in some of the earlier articles, you'll see where I described this, okay? So kissing up the backside on the top of a person's shoulder to the big atlas vertebrae at the back of the neck, kiss up and down the back of the neck, then along the back of the other shoulder, and then have them raise their chin. Okay, so that there's space. And then kiss along the top of the collarbone, up and down their throat, and over to the other collarbone. Very simple. Has a profound effect. And if you're the one that's doing this, if you're the giver instead of the receiver on this end of it, cue your partner to relax, to let their shoulders drop, to breathe deeply, and just let all this tension, let all this hurt, let all of the concerns of the day, maybe the week or the month or the year or the past lifetime behind them, drop away. Now, what this does is it stimulates the entire neural network around your shoulders, this entire shoulder girdle. And it also stimulates and serves to relax the main conduits into your brain, the back of your neck and the throat. And that stimulation, the kissing up the back of the neck and the front of the throat, stimulates both the autonomic nervous system leading into the medulla oblongata at the back of the skull, right? And it also stimulates the lymphatic system and all of the adrenal system. So this is a gentle way that you can stimulate the immune system overall, improve the oxygenation of the blood, reduce blood pressure, stimulate both the parasympathetic and the adrenal systems, and promote overall well-being. There's a tremendous sense of well-being that can be achieved, where you just simply feel like, wow, I'm loved. I'm part of it all. This is a wonderful thing, okay? And then the rest of the exercise is to take your chin, as if it were a pointer. Okay, this is not a pointer, but take your chin and draw the figure 8 symbol of infinity. We're all familiar with the figure 8 turned on its side, that infinity symbol. Take your chin and draw the infinity symbol. And this does something wonderful for your body. It makes you use these upper vertebrae that are connecting into your skull, and exercises all these muscles which are crucial to the lymphatic system on both sides, right? And it also helps you to get rid of the stooping posture that you get when you're constantly looking at a cell phone, right? It loosens this whole vital connection. And it's very simple to do. And as I remind you in the article, this is a reminder. The infinity symbol is a reminder of the universe around you, that you are part of the universe and the universe is part of you. This is a symbol of the eternal love that supports you, the energy that supports you, that amazing amount of energy that your body requires to exist in this form comes from this universe and from this symbol, the sea of life, the sea of light, and the sea of love. Okay, so the infinity symbol is reminding you that you are infinite, immortal, and part of it all. And, you know, if you just do this little simple exercise every day, your neck and your various bodily systems will improve, and you will be reminded of who you really are, that you are connected from the tiniest little grain of sand to the light of the distant stars. This is you. Okay? So some of the things that I'm talking about now are important in a very practical sense. They're important, like the article about the sea and Satan being cast down into the sea, and the law of the sea, therefore, is the area where we have all the problems that stem into the abuses of the government. And it all hinges around the differences of the standards of contracting under the law of the sea versus the law of the land. I'm going to give you some very startling but obvious and practical pointers as to, well, here's how we got here, and this is why that is. And so this now implies, where should we address these problems, right? So when you read that article, realize that there are two different ways of creating contracts, one under the law of the sea, one under the law of the land, and it's the process under the law of the land that's desirable. Okay, so we want to do any contracts under the law of the land. Pure and simple, for our own good, for the sake of keeping things sane and above board. And these are all things that you'll learn by reading those articles. Okay, I think that's about all I had to say. We had a false start with the Crown Exchange, the St. Crown Exchange. But that's nothing. That's nothing to get upset about, or, you know, that's just a human error that needed to be corrected. It will be, and then we will get the full boat float. So be as patient as you can be as generous as you can be toward everyone and everything here, and realize that we're working as hard and as fast as we can with the resources we have at the present moment. Shannon?
Hello,
Questions?
hello. All right.
Can you
Any
turn up the
questions?
volume a little, dear? I can't hear you.
Yes, I can. How's that?
That's better.
All right. Questions for Anna. 1. Executive Order 13303 was executed to include the U.S. citizens could purchase foreign currency of Iraq, which is asset-backed. If the purchase happened before one corrected their birthright political status, can one be able to exchange the currency safely as an ASN or ASC?
Yes.
Okay, next. Da-da-da-da.
I love one-word answers.
Me too. They're real simple. All right, next. Isn't it better for one to establish a relationship with a banker slash financial advisor before an event occurs, such as reinstatement, reevaluation of a currency, so to have their ducks in a row without feeling rushed while trying to make important decisions in exchange?
Well, if you set up your GFG account, you already have a relationship with a bank and a banker that's not going to cheat you. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Okay, next one. What is the process for jury nullification in an American common law court for a court case that was handled originally in the de facto foreign district court against your will?
Well, it doesn't exist in an American common law court. It might come from a de facto court system, but at the present time, the only connection between those is the Supreme Court. So there is a process by which you can ask this is kind of hard to explain, but the Supreme Court we think of as the Supreme Court, but like so many other things, it's not the Supreme Court. There are multiple Supreme Courts, and the Supreme Court that acts as the connector between American common law and U.S. de facto law exists nominally as part of the structure of the Supreme Court that they run at the present time. And I did go through that whole process. You can actually bring a case from the de facto system under an appeal to the Supreme Court, the correct Supreme Court, and then they can remand it for review to our court system. And then depending whether it's a federal issue or a federal franchise, state of state issue, it gets handed off to those, either a state court or a federal court, whichever federal court may be available on our side of the whole divide there. It can be done, but at the present moment, the Supreme Court system itself on the U.S. Supreme Court side of things is so chaotic, so overburdened, and so messed up. I cannot imagine how a case that was submitted for that kind of remand would ever, I can't even imagine. It might be 6 years before you even got a reply back out of them. And that's assuming that we continued on with the present situation that we had prior to this kind of emergency reorganization that's taking place. So I guess I would say that you can't get there from here according to any established process, procedure, or pathway. You can't redo or change a de facto court finding except by changing the jurisdiction. And then you're dealing with an entirely different ball of wax under a different set of law, different form of law and set of procedures and court system and everything else. I guess what I'm telling you is that you can't get redress under American common law for something that the U.S. court system has done to you as a direct parallel. So what you're better off doing, at least at the present moment, and this could change next month, this could change next week, because remember, we just left the British Admiralty court system behind and are now operating under the American Admiralty and Maritime standards, which are different. But there's huge upheaval going on in the court systems. The traditional way to do that is to counterclaim in their system and bring a complaint against them, against their process or against their rulings or their presumptions or whatever it is, and to seek actual restitution in their system, to make a claim against them. That's that is the way to get redress and remedy under the current scenario, and under Admiralty and Maritime law, generally speaking, is to make a claim or a salvage claim, essentially, under those forms of law. Now, I don't have enough information here to give you any better pointers at this point. I don't know what's going to happen with the court system. I don't know how quickly it's going to turn over to American Admiralty and American Maritime law. I don't know how long it's going to take those courts to get up to speed. And realistically, the entities that you would be suing at this point are bankrupt. So it's kind of a useless thing to even make a claim against them, because technically you're not supposed to make a claim against bankrupt entities, even if they don't publicize the fact that they're bankrupt. Just, poor timing in terms of pursuing that kind of redress. Sometimes I don't have an answer, but I can tell you that you can't just flip from one system to the other and bring the same facts forward and have them retried. It doesn't work that way. Shannon? Oh, Shannon.
Forgot I was muted. Sorry about that. Okay, ready for the next one? Is there any type of case? You don't know? Is there any type of case
that
so
cannot stupid be? There, I didn't even know what to say, because the system is under so much flux right now.
That's no lie. Is there any type of case that cannot be brought into an American common law court for jury nullification?
Well, there are some specialized courts that exist, like the postal court, where they are the venue for those issues. And so, there are a few things that you cannot bring into an American common law court, because they're just, the subject matter is specialized, restricted, and it has to be taken to the correct court. But those are pretty rare and far in between. I mean, it's a pretty wide open scope of things that you can decide using an American common law court, and you can nullify a whole bunch of things, including state statutes and things of that nature.
Okie dokie. Next question. Hi, Anna. With multiple recording/publishing tracks, I am concerned our jury pools are scattered and fragmented. A database linking all of them together, including GFG, seems like an opportunity for more accurate jury numbers, making use of as many Americans as possible, as well as increasing cohesiveness nationwide. Would you agree?
Well, traditionally, the states have been the source of jury duty and jury pools. And they each maintain their own jural assembly as a result. Of course, as the federal government has outgrown its intended role and has usurped power against the state, we've had a call for more and more federal juries and federal courts. And so I think there's an assumption on the part of people based on their past experience that this is going to continue to be a focus for a lot of energy, and that there will be an ongoing drive to organize at that level. I think it's going to become a lot clearer the kind of downsizing of the federal government that is in the offering here. When you consider, number one, we were paying for a complete redundancy of services. We had two servicers that were providing all the same services. So you didn't just have the Department of Labor, you had the Department of Labor and the DOL, and you were paying both. So, this kind of redundancy of services is going away. That chops the federal government almost in half right there. And then you have all of these agencies, hundreds and hundreds of federal agencies. And you have all of these departments which have been run as separate, privately owned corporations. All that stuff is under review now. All of that stuff is under scrutiny, not just its existence, but also its function. So a lot of those agencies are either going to completely disappear, or they're going to become honest vendors that have to undergo a competitive bidding process, or they're going to have to change the mode of their operation in ways that are yet to be announced. So I guess what I'm getting at here is, once again, the reorganization that we're looking at is going to lead to a vast reduction in the federal government, including the federal court system, and it's going to lead to a segregation of function, so that things which are in admiralty and maritime, for example, will actually have their own separate court system, and they will be under admiralty and maritime law, and there won't be this kind of bleed over into the lives of average people, and there won't be a presumption that everybody on the street is, operating under maritime law. So a lot of the needs that we've had in the past in terms of jury duty and jural offices, it's about to change pretty radically. And for the time being, I'd suggest that, just for the safety and sanity of everybody concerned, that we work at the state level on developing our jury pools and doing our education of the jury pools concerning American common law. And you'll find that, for example, with actual admiralty and maritime law, that they form their own populations as a natural fact of their functions. The Navy has its own peculiar admiralty law, right? Because it's the Navy. And the maritime industries, merchant mariners and the dock facilities, warehouses, all that kind of stuff, they have their own culture. They have their own law. And so they have their own court. And that develops, their own jury pool. So anyway, unless we're looking at a complete restructuring of the law, which is what I am all about, which I've advocated openly for years, unless I get my way, we'll continue to have all these various specialized courts with specialized law and specialized functions and specialized jury pools to go with them. And I would suggest that in terms of benefit for Americans, and especially for Joe average Americans, that we need to each state needs to concentrate on the development of their assembly membership and their assembly's jury pool.
Okay,
Shannon.
I'm here. What is your current marriage license once you put it on LRO? The revocation marriage letter, what actually cancels your marriage off their system? Do we put the governor or who on notice other than the political status letter sent to the U.S. Secretary and the Secretary of State?
Well, we're trying to get this whole mess cleaned up so that marriage licenses across the board are completely wiped away and exonerated. Because marriage licensing is essentially a repugnant carryover from slavery. The history of the marriage license is just absurd. It was a social engineering of the 19th century under the auspices of the military complex that formed after the Civil War. And basically what it was is that a bunch of white people were concerned that the freed slaves would populate like bunnies, and that before you knew it, there would be millions and millions and millions of black people taking over all the white crackers' population's property and becoming a danger to the society that they wish to promote, and blah, 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 blah. So they instituted marriage laws in which a black man had to establish himself and provide proof that he could afford a family to support a wife and family before he could get married. And upon providing proof of his stability and good character and intent and his ability to provide for a wife and family, then he could secure a marriage license, and he could, then go through the process and marry the woman of his dreams, right? Well, from that start, which was outrageous by our standards today, they expanded this and redefined it, relabeled it, redefined it, to make it a quote-unquote marriage between persons, not people, persons. And they redefined marriage as a joint business venture, a JV, with the state-of-state organization that issued the license standing in as a silent third partner, so that the state-of-state acquired an interest in your joint venture. And that's how the state-of-state courts claim to have the authority to decide who got the children, which are products of this joint venture, and who got the house, again, as the silent partner. The state-of-state gets to dictate the distribution of assets when the joint venture dissolves. The problem, of course, is that the Berman never explained any of this to anybody, never exposed the fact that nobody in their right mind needs a marriage license, and that the whole process of converting a basic human, a natural right of mankind to mate and form a family was converted into a privilege and later into a business form and construct. It's absolutely outrageous. And, the extent of the outrageousness was highlighted during the Biden administration with all of the gay marriages being brought forward into public consciousness. And they were smirking because the public doesn't understand that a marriage license is a business license to form a joint venture. So of course gay marriage is legal. Of course it's allowable. Of course it means marriage means nothing except a joint venture in that system. So they took something that was private, natural, lawful, sacred, and they turned it into a joint venture that they could profit themselves from and exercise coercive power using this licensing practice to be able to distribute the products of the joint venture, the children, and the property of the joint venture, the house, personal property, or whatever, to whichever party of the joint venture they wanted to benefit. So this might have been very convenient for the social engineers, but I think everybody listening tonight will realize that you never needed a marriage license. You never wanted a marriage license. And, I think the American people should be outraged, and they should outlaw any marriage licensing of any kind ever, because it's not a privilege. It is a natural human right. It's a right of all mankind to mate and have a family and to have relationships and, to honor those bonds, which are sacred. They're not something for the government to have its nose in. So I think that I think the drive is going to be to just outlaw marriage licensing, period, at all, in any jurisdiction, and leave it to be a matter of community and sacred association.
Okay, ready for the next question. How are Assembly members to avoid the draft?
Well, I don't know if we're still in the very end process of editing a template that I created this week for people to do a individual claim of the demand for performance and correction that I issued this past week. I cranked that down into an individual level demand letter. And as part of that demand letter, it explicitly says that you are not accepting an obligation of citizenship to agree to conscription, press ganging, the draft, or similar non-consensual public service, public or private service. So it's a pretty complete claim of exemption from the draft that's included as part of that template. And as soon as we can get the team together to do a review of exact language and options, that will be available to everybody here, and it will be recommended that you just send this off to both Scott Besant as the treasurer and to Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State and their offices, so that you're on record as having already said no. And here's one of the really obvious and ugly things about their system that they created, where they impersonated all of us as things instead of treating us as people under people law. They have been able to enforce a draft on names and things, and thereby appear to have the ability to conscript, press gang, and draft people for service for their mercenary companies, when in fact, press ganging, non-consensual conscription, i.e. the draft, has been illegal. Well, press ganging has been illegal for more than 200 years, and conscription became illegal shortly thereafter. So they're engaged in things that are illegal and unlawful, and they know it. And that's what broke the draft during the Vietnam War, is that enough people became aware and started bringing this forward and saying, what the? You know, this has been illegal for 200 years. How do you think you're getting away with it? Oh, well, we're just pretending that Joe Anderson over there is actually a corporation and forcing the corporation to provide this service. Yeah, right. So the draft is illegal, it's unlawful, it cannot be enforced if the people stand up and say, no. And we're going to have to do that on a lot of different things. They're going to try to force us to do all sorts of things based on these disreputable, deceitful misapplications and omissions and non-disclosures. Our California coordinator, Michelle Ford, reported that she was asked for her social security number at a bank. The bank doesn't need to see your social security number, and she refused. She just plain out, no, you don't need that information. Oh, and after being told no, the bank teller went, oh, okay. See, they'll try to weasel things around. They'll try to make you do things. They will presume upon you. And, you know, presumption is one of those ugly things that it really should be. When someone presumes upon you and they are trying to get you to cooperate in something that's to your own detriment, which is you know, that's an example of it. We should have some sort of response. There should be something that we can immediately enact, like, well, people used to slap each other. They used to just go, how dare you? I'm not sure that we're able to do that anymore, but we should be able to come up with some sort of statement or response where these presumptions upon us can be answered, and everybody will know what we're saying when we do it. But anyway, don't let them presume upon you. Don't let them assume that you're a thing or a corporation, or that you are administering such a thing or corporation for the good of some foreign corporation. You know, just make it clear. No, that's not me. I'm not subject to that. I am claiming my exemption, and there you go.
Okie
Oh, Shannon.
dokie. I'm here. Can you please tell us more about the restitution recoupment case in Massachusetts, and how soon can someone get a template with the winning arguments to us so we can start it on getting our homes back?
We've had trouble, and I'm not surprised, We've had trouble actually getting the information in. So we're still working on that. There are a lot of, let's put it this way, there are a lot of parties that would prefer if we didn't get that information. So I think it's going to come down to having it rerouted, so that we actually get the information we need to be able to start working on that as a template issue next week.
Okie dokie. Question for Anna. We have 3 ASN adults in our household. None hold ASC status. One credential card read American State Citizen. The other 2 read American State National. Do you know why one would have a different title than the others? Note, I checked with the other members in the assembly and their credential cards are all different and don't appear to coincide with their ASN or ASC status. Is there any explanation for such inconsistency?
A mistake. I would just turn the ASC card back in and say, look, I'm an ASN. I don't know how I got listed as an ASC.
Okay, Anna has talked about the big pile of mittens that represents all Americans' public and private assets. Is there anything we need to do or paperwork we need to send to claim our mittens from the pile?
No, we already claimed all our mittens as a big pile, and now as you come forward and do your declaration and publish your correct political status and all of that, as you go through the paperwork here, you have your claim in place. This is how you make your claim, is by returning home to the land and soil jurisdiction and being identified as an American. And we're working on the ways and means in which you get your property back. Okay, but that's a systemic answer where we have to develop institutions and computer systems and banks even to be able to do that. And that's what we've been working on.
Tonight you spoke of finding something in our lives that gives us purpose to focus on. Something important to me is helping local animal shelters, nursing homes, children libraries. All these need donations desperately. When the time comes, will I be able to donate a large sum of USD via my GFG account to help those causes close to my heart? I'm excited about the prospect of helping so many people in need. Thank you.
Well, right, and we all need to be doing this kind of thinking, all right, and also realize that as we go forward, that long list will expand, and we'll become more aware of other things, a wider range of needs that are waiting. Kind of, we're not conscious of them, but they'll be brought forward. And yes, depending on our own personal individual needs and desires, a potentially very large amount of resources will be cut loose to be able to benefit projects and special needs and causes throughout not just this country, but throughout the world. It's going to be an opportunity for people to really exercise and have impact on things that are close to their heart.
Okay, next question. I've got my second distribution into my GFG account, which is fantastic. There's nothing in the educational portal that tells me how to use it or if it can be accessed. Are we waiting for the virtual cards to use these funds?
At this point, we're waiting for the exchange platform to be finalized, and there are a couple of exchange platforms involved. So we have our own exchange platform and we have partner exchange platforms, and the number of exchange platforms is increasing, and we're fine-tuning the very last bits of the paperwork and the software needed to connect all these things. So you're walking in at a point where there are relatively few things to be done yet. We had a false start of the St. Crown Exchange this past week. What we needed to do was do a final edit of the exact, not so much language, but the way certain things were being expressed to make the language explicit and clear and legal. And then we also need to do some, for lack of a better word, a connector, some software to connect to software systems. And it's not a real complex bit of work, but it's a bit of work that needs to be done. So we're getting to the point where very soon all these different little tweaking, final edit type things will be done. And then you'll be able to exchange your AFD and your credit certificates with all the other different national forms of money and credit that are being exchanged. Last time I looked, there was something like 192 different forms of money and credit that you could exchange AFD into.
Okay, and that is actually the last of our questions. They're not GFG questions. I hate to tell y'all this. I'm not skipping your questions out of spite. I'm skipping your questions because we don't have any control or knowledge about those things yet.
Well, or just, we've got to, it's sort of like talking about somebody else's business. It's secondhand. What we can tell you is it's secondhand. It's sort of like secondhand evidence, or it almost, we can tell you what we heard at a meeting, or we can tell you what somebody told us, but it's better if they tell you directly, and then you have a chance to ask them questions, which is why they've been making an effort to get out and actually talk to people at, on this forum and on other forums that come up so that they can answer questions directly. And I think that process of having JFG come on to the webinar or take part in roundtables or take part on podcasts is just going to increase. The issue that we tend to have with GFG is that it's highly technical, and some of the jargon that we use is jargon that has never existed before. A system like GFG has never existed before, and so you wind up making up your own jargon, your own new words for new processes, or new arrangements of elements in a step-by-step process. Or so sometimes bringing forward GFG to answer questions results in more questions than answers, because people will get the wrong impression. It's actually a pretty complex system. And there are two primary systems, which we call System 1 and System 2. And you have to keep track whether you're talking about System 1 or you're talking about System 2 at any given moment to get the correct answer, right? And then on top of that, you've got trust management systems, you've got bank to prosperity center conversion questions. I mean, it's a pretty darn complex, wide-ranging, and multi-level subject, because remember, Global started out as a bank for banks, and it had to expand its mission down to the level of basically a retail banking facility. And that gives a range and depth to Global's activities that is almost insane. So, communicating about those aspects of the retail program and the recoupment process and all of that is pretty darn difficult. And keeping all of those words and systems separated so that you can get the precise answer that you need is difficult. It's not impossible, but it does lend to situations where people hear something and then they make an assumption, and pretty soon we have the entire internet ablaze with, people saying something that just isn't correct. And so I'm hoping that we can kind of at some point separate out the systems and subject matter so that it's always kept in context. And right now I don't see a way of doing that, but we will be making the effort to communicate at least, and we will make the effort to explain the system verbally, understanding that the system itself is still under development, will be for some time to come. But I guess the big thing here is that, yes, you are going to be able to exchange. You will be able to buy from vendors all over the world. Yes, you will be able to exchange both asset-backed money. The AFD at this point is an asset-backed digital currency. Yes, there will be cash in the new system. There will be certificates. You will have something you can hold in your hot little hands and stuff under your mattress. That isn't here yet. Yes, you will be able to exchange your credit vouchers. Your heritage dollars. You'll be able to exchange those heritage dollars for goods and services in the credit market, the credit debit system. And you'll also be able to invest in Harmony dollars, which are another, I call it a universal hedge, in that Harmony dollars are based on the overall performance of the world economy. So if the asset base of Burkina Faso goes up, the value of the Harmony dollar goes up. And anyone who has Harmony dollars is benefited by the increase in productivity and health and welfare and natural resource development in Burkina Faso, or in Iraq, or in China, and anywhere in the world where an economy or a natural resource base is being developed responsibly, and all those different things that are going forward for good, then the Harmony dollar increases in value. And the Harmony dollar acts as a hedge or a buffer for disasters that happen in individual national economies. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but say that for some reason England suffers a terrible, catastrophic financial collapse, and the overall value of the British economy, its productivity slows down, and it has a lot of losses, so that the the British credit is in the tank, and their credit rating is lousy, and all these other things happen, so that overall the funding that it's attached to goes down. Well, if all the other world economies are going up, it doesn't much matter if Britain goes down the tubes. You see, the harmony dollar will overall buffer and moderate that in terms of the value. So that's why I call it a little mini hedge fund in your pocket. So the harmony dollar is providing something that has never existed in the world before. And that is a mini hedge fund that you can put in your pocket and know that the value of that dollar is based on the progress and the well-being of all the world economies, which I think is wonderful, because we should all be focused on mutual benefit, on finding win-win solutions so that everybody benefits. I have this little echo in my head of my Sunday school teacher back in 6th grade saying, if it's not good for everyone, it's not good. Okay. So you'll have the option to buy Harmony dollars and use Harmony dollars, and Harmony dollars will be available and will be something that can be used worldwide, so that the need to constantly change back and forth between, say, US dollars and French francs and all of that can be pretty much resolved just by having Harmony dollars, which can be accepted in all countries.
Okay, we are down to 5 minutes to go. I vote we call this. Dinner's just about ready here.
All right, well, hugs and kisses, everybody. Spend some time alone with yourself and with your family members and with those who are nearest and dearest, and think deep thoughts and keep your powder dry and be healthy and happy. Remember us if you can. I know everybody is kind of anxious and weirded out by all of the big changes that are happening. There's really no need for you to be afraid. You're okay, and you will be okay. It's just we have to be patient and make these transitions. Try to focus on positive things this week. Don't let your attention be misdirected toward all sorts of negativity. That is, it's not good for you, and it does nothing to assist. So keep your hearts and minds centered on the things that are important, near and dear to you. And if you have a chance and can send us some help one way or another, Paul Stramer takes donations for the effort, and of course there's the TASA website, and you can always send funds to me directly through my usual avenues. So we are facing some significant extra expenses, both due to expansion of duties that we have to perform and through some health issues that some key people are having, and some just pure accidental, what kinds of things that have been happening to some of our research and diplomatic corps people. So anyway, whatever you can do, send hugs, send prayers, send good thoughts, and we're just going to keep on going. Take care, folks. God bless.